This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 956, brought to you by Cough Drops, Cold Medicine, Honey Tea, and iFanboy listeners just like you. Hello, my name is Conor Kilpatrick, and sitting in for my absent co-host Josh Flanagan is our old pal Paul Montgomery.
That's me. I'm here.
And this is iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 956. We are back post-Thanksgiving. It's always a weird show. Just want to set expectations.
It's just a leftover show. Although it doesn't feel like a leftover kind of week. There is a lot of heavy hitters out this week.
That's the thing. I had 25 books on my pull list, which was nuts. I just want to set expectations. We do the best we can with these shows. I think last year I recorded from my grandmother's bathroom with like the laptop perched on her sink.
Okay.
You do what you can. Thanksgiving is not a very forgiving holiday for this kind of...
That was the only room that you could do it in?
It was the only room where I could... She had an open... I don't want to get into her apartment, but she has an open layout. She had an open layout. She's not living anymore. Okay. Really the only room that closed that I could be sure that no one's going to walk in on was one of her bathrooms. So anyway, my point is this. I had 25 books this week. I think I read 14 of them.
And that's okay because I had the pick this week.
Right.
It was my responsibility to read all the books. I read all of them.
We are professionals. We always get it done, except for the post-Thanksgiving show. It is what it is. There's family obligations. The Thanksgiving festivities tend to happen as soon as the books come out until we record the show, and so it makes life difficult. Anyway, we're going to have a good time.
I got the courier pigeon. Connor said, I'm sick. Can you do the podcast? And I said, okay. And then I showed up, and you're here. It's not because you're sick.
No.
Josh is either sicker than you or just couldn't be bothered. So you're here sick. Yeah. So everybody... give Conor some love because he's not feeling well.
Up.
He showed up.
Every week, one of us picks the book they like the best from their stack of comics, and this week was going to be Paul. We call that book the Pick of the Week. We're going to talk about that book, other books in the week, the Patron Pick, hopefully some listener mail, and hopefully we have fun, despite the fact that I have a sore throat from hanging out with lots of people. Someone gave me something, and it kind of hurts to talk. But it'll be fun anyway. Here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution. This week, Paul Montgomery is back with the pick.
Okay, so... Conor, do you have a favorite Universal monster? Like when you were a kid, did you have a favorite? Like were you a Wolfman kid? Were you a Dracula
No.
kid?
I mean, I think maybe Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein. Yeah. Frankenstein was probably every kid's favorite. I think Dracula a little too scary. Wolfman a little too scary. The Mummy, weird. I just watched the original film again because TCM always does the Universal Marathon on Halloween. So I watched Dracula, I watched Frankenstein, I watched Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, just how they pronounce it in the movie.
Yeah.
I just missed out on Wolfman just because of timing. And I had seen the original film previously last year at a theater. They did a double bill showing of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. And they're both they're both like 65 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in and they're out.
And then when I was working a couple of years ago back at 6 Foot Press, you and I did that comic together, but I also did a comic related to Frankenstein. There's been a lot of Frankenstein in my life, or Frankenstein in my life in the last couple of years. I love Frankenstein.
He's an iconic character.
He's iconic. The monster's iconic. The Doctor, not so much.
Yeah, our pick this week is Universal Monsters, Frankenstein number 4, which is the finale. This is a 4-part miniseries.
Yep.
Story and art by Michael Walsh, who you might know from The Silver Coin.
Terrific artist.
Sort of jam comic. There's a few different people on there, but he was he was like, I guess, the principal creator of that.
Yes.
And then color, super important credit here, because color plays a very big role in this book. Toni Marie Griffin, letters by Becca Carey. I have not read the other Universal miniseries that they've done so far, Universal Monsters. They did Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
And a Dracula, I believe.
Correct.
And if you look in the letters pages at the end of this issue, they say that they can't announce the next one, but they spoil it as they say that we hope you'll get wrapped up in the next one. So obviously...
That's obviously Dr. Jekyll.
It's obviously Dr. Jekyll. Or the Mummy, perhaps.
Or Wolfman. It could be Wolfman.
It could be Wolfman. He does wrap himself up a bit.
That fur is warm.
It is. And so...
This was the best one. I've read all of them.
I want to check out the other two.
They're not bad, but this is by far the best one. I've read them all. I will continue to read them all. I love the Universal Monsters. But Michael Walsh is a singular talent. I remember showing people pages from the first issue, like that first time you see the monster. I was like, look at this.
It's really striking.
Yeah.
This is a great finale, and it has some of the most iconic visuals from the movie. Because obviously this is following the 1931 movie, which is a departure from the Mary Shelley novel.
Right.
But I love both of those. I love Frankenstein.
This is a tag and bink scenario. This is where Michael Walsh takes a new character, this kid, and weaves him throughout the movie. And so he makes him the kid, the son of one of the bodies that the doctor's assistant, who's not named Igor, but should be named Igor. Fritz, not as much fun as Igor.
It's so weird. It's Henry Frankenstein, although he has a friend named Victor in the movie, and then Fritz is the Igor. It's like it's set in like the 1930s, essentially.
Yeah. So this kid is sort of keeps popping up throughout the film, and there are new
Paul
scenes.
is his name, the orphan Paul. Yeah, and he is basically he's witness to a lot of the events. It's not entirely through his point of view because we see the like one of the iconic moments is Frankenstein with little Maria throwing flowers into the water, into the lake.
Which is so, I mean, it's horrifying.
Yes.
But it's also so kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's horrifying. They're throwing flowers in the water. They run out of flowers. And so Frankenstein's monster throws her in the water and she drowns. That's horrifying.
It is.
However, the casualness in which it's framed in the film, I'm talking about the film, is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Horrifying, but also
it's like, oops, no more flowers. What do I throw in now? And she's as beautiful. And it's like the twisted irony of she's a little flower. She's a little daisy, just like these flowers. And so he throws her in and she drowns, unfortunately.
That scene here is really well done. I thought really.
Yeah. The really flowers break the panel.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, like a 3D effect. Like if
they're
you were
falling, they're kind of falling through the page. Yeah.
Right. And you see the anguish when her father discovers her body in the water. She's missing it first, and then he scoops her out. And then we got to get this monster. We got to stop this from happening to anyone else. We got to get revenge.
Yeah, Maria's the straw that breaks the proverbial back of the townspeople to finally get rid of this monster.
Mm-hmm. And so each of these issues is also framed around the idea of the different body parts that are being scavenged, they're being grave robbed to create this monster. The first issue was about the hands. So this Paul's father was a cop, but also a craftsman who made him this like toy horse. And that plays into the finale of this. And then this one is about eyes, is the eyes of the monster. And the eyes that Frankenstein uses, I don't know why he doesn't just use the whole head.
You'd think it'd be easier.
You think it would be easier.
Especially 1930s
but
doctoring.
he basically scoops the green eyes out of a man who is hanged, and we see a sort of flashback to, for a fun time, he takes his fiancée Elizabeth to this hanging.
Dr. Frankenstein is a monster.
He is a mess. He's got a constant tension headache, it looks like. He's constantly holding his face in his hands. He's constantly talking about his work. Elizabeth is like, I don't want to be here. I just want to get married for some reason to this awful guy.
He's got a big castle.
Yeah, he does have a big... He's a baron? His father's a baron.
Yeah, he's rich. His father's a baron. His father's always throwing awesome cocktail parties.
So that Swiss chocolate fortune, I guess, maybe? I don't know.
Pre-Nazi fortune.
Maybe the Ricola...
Yeah, maybe it's Ricola. It could be.
Fortune.
Or strudel, maybe.
They go and watch this hanging, and the intensity with which he wants to watch this guy die. I guess with the thinking that he's going to take his eyes later, or some part of him. He's already thinking about bits and pieces he can take from this guy.
I think that's certainly the case, but I also think he's obsessed with death.
Yes.
And so I think witnessing a death is probably super awesome for him.
Mm-hmm. And I think also smartly, it's, the issue is called The Eyes of the Monster. And when the guy is hanged, or just before, the title page is actually a 2-page spread. We're sort of over the shoulder of the hanging man looking at these people who have come to watch him in the town square be hanged. And we see their soulless eyes. And the man is fixated on Frankenstein, the doctor.
Yeah, the coloring is great there.
Because the coloring singles him out, and we see his eye, and he is just staring at this guy, looking at him in the eyes, whereas some people are sort of looking away or crying. And then there are insert shots of the dead man's eye being scooped out later.
Terrible.
Awful. We get the classic windmill scene, the monster lifting Frankenstein and hurling him off It looks better than in the movie. I went and looked back at the scene in the movie because it's clearly like a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the legs like flailing as he falls and lands on one of the blades of the windmill. But it's such an amazing image. Lands on the windmill blade, which softens the fall a bit so he doesn't die. And then they burn down the windmill, and we watch the monster actually be consumed in the flames. It's horrific.
Yeah, it's a really terrible image.
Then afterwards, we get some stuff, of course, that isn't in the movie. Like in the movie, they just cart Frankenstein back home, and we see the windmill burn down. And then we get, depending on which ending you get, the studio wanted them to have an ending with the wedding.
Right.
So there's a happy ending.
Yeah, there's another party, another cocktail party.
Another cocktail party, exactly. Oh, and with different actors than the actor who played Frankenstein and Elizabeth. They either weren't available or whatever. But anyways, here we actually get to see Frankenstein's reaction to having seen his monster be destroyed in flames. Right. And he's like, no, stop. I want to see it. And I guess he either wants proof that he wants to be there for this final moment of this creature that, almost killed Elizabeth, that has like destroyed his reputation, that he feels partly responsible for. We see some sense that he's saying like, I dare to look into the bright light of creation and want to become a god.
Right.
And so he does feel some sense of guilt.
And he asks for forgiveness.
Right. And the boy Paul is there for his confession, and he's holding the knife, which he was going to kill him before, because immediately Paul was like, in the first issue, was like, I got to kill this guy. This is an abomination. That's not my dad. This is this weird cobbled together version of my dad.
He's a precocious little kid.
He is.
Yeah, I thought this was an excellent miniseries. I thought Michael Walsh is always someone who, when his name comes up, you're like, oh, awesome, because his sense of style, his page design, his storytelling, but then the atmospheric character work, and he's perfect for this book.
It's very atmospheric, yeah.
This would look great in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
His art is just terrific, and the way he gives personality to the monster, but also never forgets it is a monster. It's an abomination, and it's scary, and you have sympathy for it because it's not. It's not just a show about Frankenstein. You feel bad for the monster because it's what it is, but
right.
It's also scary, and will casually throw a little girl into the river to drown. This was just such a good book. And then This is a great issue. This is a great ending to the issue, and I thought this was a terrific miniseries. If you have known someone who likes Frankenstein, this is a great book to give them.
Yeah, and I love that it's not a happy ending for anybody. This is a great way to end this story, which is a tragedy.
If I recall correctly, it was a happy ending for the Baron's staff because they actually got to drink champagne. I think that's how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you haven't seen that movie, check it out. It's a great film. It's not that long. Let's move on to Justice League Unlimited #1, the big DC release this week from Mark Waid and Dan Mora with 4 arms who can draw multiple books.
Incredible.
We talked about this back when they announced it, when they were doing the DC All-In kickoff, and they announced, they should have revealed the whole Justice League Unlimited status quo. This is the first Justice League book that's been in a while. There's been no Justice League series for many years. And we talked a little bit about how it's appropriate year here is that they've never really done this Justice League Unlimited concept in comics before. I think maybe once, but really they've never done this concept where they're like everyone in the DCU is on the Justice League living in the satellite, like we saw in the cartoon.
There have been like adaptations of that, but not within the DC universe proper. I think there's been a book called Justice League Unlimited, but it's just using the name, I think.
I mean, to the point where the title page recalls the cartoon exactly, the opening credits.
That made me smile seeing
They're doing it on the nose. They're like, we're not even going to try to pretend like this isn't the cartoon, which was incredibly popular.
It is the design treatment for that, and that series is amazing. If you have not seen it, it's great. We've talked before on the Animation Brain Trust about how animation might be, this was your hypothesis.
Yes, superior to comics.
Superior to comics in terms of superhero storytelling. It's the place to do it.
Right.
And Justice League Unlimited is, I don't know, it's just a wonderful showcase of not just like the Trinity or even just like the core characters that you tend to see in the Justice League, but like all the smaller characters, great team ups, and you get to see different corners of the DCU. And hopefully that is what's going to be happening here.
And who's better to do that than Mark Waid, who is a walking, talking DC repository of knowledge and characters and history and lore. And so here we got a lot. We got cast of thousands in this book, which is I guess slightly oversized, but we have a very classic ABC storytelling, which is hardly ever used anymore, where we have a main story with a group of Justice Leaguers. It's basically whenever there's a problem, an assortment of Leaguers are sent out as a team. So there's not like a Justice League team. It's whoever's most appropriate.
Get up on the satellite. Some superheroes have the option to live there.
Yeah.
Which is helpful because a lot of superheroes live paycheck to paycheck sometimes. So giving them quarters on this giant satellite, pretty awesome.
And one assumes food.
Yep.
Some people have their own sections. Like the Justice Society has their own area.
Yeah, that's cool. They have their own the table. They don't have to book time in the conference room. They have their own conference rooms.
And the Titans have their own room, and the Superman family has their own room.
Mm-hmm.
You got to wonder the hierarchy, how far down. Does the Marvel family have their own room? I guess not.
Mm-hmm.
But no one likes them. So, in the B storylines, Batman and Jaime Reyes investigating something I can't remember, and then the C plot
Costa Rica. They're in a rainforest.
I can't remember what they were looking for.
The main group is sent to South Africa because there's giant construction equipment, big wheeled mech things. Right. They're going all crazy. Big blockbuster stuff, wreaking havoc. Machines of such terrible power that Superman and Wonder Woman are having a rough time punching through them.
Right. And then the C plot is about this new hero, Airwave, who has just joined the Justice League Unlimited, has gone to the satellite for the first time, is sort of the audience surrogate who gets to learn about the satellite, and so therefore we do. Helps out in the mission, but then at the end, and the cliffhanger is revealed to be a villain. So there's a lot going on here, and I think only really Mark Waid and Dan Mora can pull off something this fun with this much happening. I never felt like it was overwhelming. I loved that it was crazy and packed, and there were tons of characters.
So many characters.
When's the last time you saw Firestorm do anything interesting?
Star Sapphire.
Right.
And then Black Lightning points out that he's a teacher.
Right.
And he's sort of being a mentor during the mission for Star Sapphire.
Right.
And how they can, employ their powers. And, Mark Waid's great at doing solo superhero stories, but he's really great at doing team dynamics and being able to use these powers. Coming up with something for Airwave to do. His power is to travel through radio waves.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fighting to even go along on this trip. Red Tornado is out of his body currently and is serving as an AI. He's basically the Martian Manhunter right now.
Yeah. So the one thing with All In is that, they said anything could happen now. People lost their powers or got apparently Fire and Ice got their powers switched.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an easy excuse to do whatever you want. So you just say, oh, now Red Tornado doesn't have a body. He's the AI in the machine. So it's fine. It's chaos, but it's fine. Were you really confused when you got to the end and there was a Hush preview?
I mean, I had heard that there was going to be another Hush story, but it does kind of abruptly just happen.
There's no buffer, so I just kept going, and especially digitally, I just kept scrolling, and I was like, wait, what's happening now?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, right, this is a preview.
Yeah, it's not like the B story or anything, or like a backup. It's just they happen to have a preview for the Hush thing in there.
I thought this was fun. I was looking forward to it. I thought this was an incredibly good time. I don't know how Dan Mora does this and Superman, and he doesn't skimp.
Doesn't skip at all. And it's big blockbuster action. I will say, when Batman and Jaime are looking into the rainforest, I wasn't sure what we were looking at.
Yeah.
They were we're going to need to call in some of the big hitters. And it was
lights,
is it on fire? It's like orange lights, and it turns out to be aliens, which you figure out later in the issue. There's creatures that are bioluminescent, and that's what they're calling them in for. Otherwise, Superman has his own expression. Black Light. It's not the same character used over and over again in different costumes.
Right.
I love the stuff with Flash giving Airwave a tour around the satellite. It's a great way to do exposition, but also in a fun way.
Right. This is how a Justice League book should feel.
Mm-hmm.
Even before they took it off the shelf for so long, it just kind of was. And it wasn't interesting or exciting. You didn't feel like the stories were fun. But if you're going to do a big book with all the heroes, it should feel big and exciting and give everyone a show. This just feels oh, remember when team books were important? This feels like that. Now, whether or not people will read it and think that, we'll find out. But I was like halfway through, I was like, yeah, this is how a Justice League book should feel.
Yeah, I like Flash and Airwave running by, and we see that Question, Renee Montoya, is on the satellite, and they're like, sup. So you get an idea of who's around and everything. And I think, I would hope that, I don't know how much of a household name Dan Moore is yet. He should be. He should be a big draw for people to come to this book.
I hope
definitely
so.
was for me.
He's probably my favorite artist working.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
So let's talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #4, the final issue of the character introductions. We had one issue per turtle. Mm-hmm. This is Jason Aaron. Each issue's been different artists. This one's Chris Burnham, one of my favorites. And I thought his style was the closest kind of to what you would have seen like from Kevin Eastman.
That's the take home from this, is that I've enjoyed the previous issues, but this one feels like, without it feeling like totally aping another style, this feels within the wheelhouse of Eastman and Laird.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of creepy.
This issue was dark and weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So Master Splinter died previously to this storyline.
You haven't been reading these turtle books.
I off and on have been reading them.
You know, this feels like how Josh and I have gone back to reading G.I. Joe.
I'm sure.
The long-running one, where we're constantly having to figure out what's going on because we skipped like 10 years of books.
Right.
And so things that are happening in this book, because it's a continuation. There's not a reboot, even though the numbering is. And so I'm having to figure out what's been going on with these characters. Like, I didn't know Splinter was dead. I mean, before this series, like there's a lot I'm having to catch up on, which is kind of fun. It feels like the way you felt as a kid when you picked up a comic for the first time.
Exactly. And it's like the situation where, like, let's say you pick up the previous Nightwing, the Tom Taylor,
right,
and you find out in the first issue of that, maybe if you hadn't been reading Batman previously, that Alfred has died.
Right.
You're like, oh, okay, Alfred's dead in this part of the story. And it's like, you don't even have to start with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Alpha or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. You could start here if you want. Like, you'll figure it out.
All of these have been basically like that.
But it is very dark. So Splinter is dead. Donatello follows a regular rat who he's now calling Splinter. Who eventually ends up on his shoulder with a shuriken through his neck. And he's still talking to him. That rat is dead. That rat has ceased to be. And this is picking up from the Alpha issue, where Donatello is trapped with some other mutants. Not all mutants are martial artists.
It's not like the X-Men, where you become a mutant and suddenly you have the ability to fight crime. Like, these are just other animals.
These are just anthropomorphic sort of animal people, and it's very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. They're not necessarily doing experiments on these creatures. They're just in a horrible position, living in pens.
They live in pens, and people could come to fight them.
It's like bum fights. It's like
mutant fights. They call them safaris, right?
Right. These horrible people in Florida are inviting people to come in and give, was it $2,000?
Yeah, and then they up it.
For a certain amount of time. There's a time limit, and you can fight one of these mutants.
And so Donnie
has taken it upon himself.
I call him Donnie.
To defend the others.
He baits everyone who comes in to fight him because he knows the other ones can't fight. Even though, when we haven't even talked about the fact that Donatello is like wasting away.
Yeah.
He's basically skin and bones.
He's skin and bone, but like then the shell is still wide and he's got like wide
Did you say it's
cheeks.
Like a fake shell? Is this in the beginning? It said like it's an artificial shell. It's like metal.
Oh, I missed that.
Here we go. Oh, body withering away. Artificial shell feels like an anvil on my back.
Oh,
I think it's a metal shell.
Okay.
But anyway, he baits them all to fighting him because he still has his ninja abilities, even if he's basically Jeff Goldblum's body. But eventually, all these people get pissed and they show up together as a giant group to fight him all at once. And I thought this was dark, and I liked it. Chris Burnham's a huge draw for me. He does unsettling and strange very, very well.
It's just it's scratchy, it's uncomfortable. It's like you can smell these pens.
Yes. But then when the hands show up and Donnie's got to fight them, and he turns like he gets a makeshift bow.
Did you say the hands?
The foot.
The foot.
The foot. Sorry, this is the same thing.
Distinct legal. No, it's funny because that's what they're based on. Legally distinct, the Foot Clan.
Right. You're right. The foot.
Yeah, but Donnie's like, he assumes that the foot is behind this whole thing, but actually, he's, oh no, these are just a couple of dirtbags who are just doing this
These
for
are assholes.
fun. And the foot is here to mess them up too and take me. And then we bring in the other turtles who have met up in the previous issues, and let's get Donnie out of here. And Donnie's like, Master Splinter here is like, and they're
That's
looking
the
at this
most
dead
unsettling
rat.
scene of the entire
God.
thing. He's got crazy eyes. He's got a dead rat with as I said, a ninja star in him on his shoulder. The whole scene is unsettling. Their faces when they see him.
Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is going to carry into future issues. Like, is Donnie going to be messed up? Like,
right.
I think it's funny. And I like Aaron's writing for all the voices of the turtles throughout these issues. And I like that Donnie is like, he's like, I do machines. I got to, like, where are my machines to do? And becoming who he is, and it's like finding himself again. I thought this is the strongest of these 4 issues, and this was a contender. Really, really good this week.
The Burnham art really was like, oh, this is like Kevin Eastman, but better.
So if I could pick like a continuing artist, I would love for it to.
I'm very excited for Juan Ferreira. I think he's a great artist, but I want to see how he does these turtles. But Burnham would have been a terrific choice to keep going with this. So we had another Tom King book launch this week. I think, was it last year or the year before they launched Danger Street around this time?
Right.
End of the year Tom King book. Black Canary, Best of the Best, #1. This is a 6-issue miniseries about Black Canary and her fight against Lady Shiva in the ring. First of all, Ryan Sook is the artist. Dave Stewart's the colorist. It's a beautiful book.
Yep.
You never get Ryan Sook interiors. I hope he does the whole thing.
That's the question, yeah.
I mean, they didn't need to put this out, right? They can wait till he's done, but as we know, that hardly ever actually happens. So my whole thing with Tom King books, for the most part, is whether or not they're Black Label on the cover, they're Black Label in my heart.
Sure.
Wonder Woman is terrific, but not a book I consider to be in continuity, even though they've referenced it in other books and things. It just doesn't make any sense. And this book feels kind of like that, especially the casual manner in which they just talk about Black Canary's real name in the ring. The announcer. I was like, what is happening? Why are they calling her Dinah Lance? Doesn't the secret identity mean anything? I just consider all of these to be, out of continuity. It's just more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, it feels like it's in its own little pocket universe. And when I heard the pitch for this, when I first saw like the covers and like read the plot synopsis, I was like, why? Like, usually it's bringing together less, not in a bad way, I should say, but like usually Tom King's like Black Label kind of books are like bringing characters that are
on the margins. On
the margins is a good way to put it. Like Danger Street, like who's using those characters?
Right. Even Justice League or whatever that one was called. Human Target. Even Human Target was
Target, yes.
Fire and Ice and Guy Gardner. Those are sort of on the margin.
Right. And then but this like a mini series about Black Canary for the most part. Like, it's
she's not on the margins, but she's
like, I mean, she's already in Birds of Prey.
Yeah, that's true.
So like he must have a really interesting, I guess it's kind of like the Supergirl book. Because I guess, I mean, Supergirl's solo title had been canceled at that point.
Right.
So they couldn't just put it into a monthly. So it had to be its own sort of miniseries. I don't know. But like, I think Tom King comes up with these cool sort of one-off stories. And he's like, hey, let's do this as a 6-issue or a 12-issue maxi series or whatever. And it's just kind of interesting. It's not just like, I need to think of a story to put in this monthly book. It's, I have a particular story to tell. Let's come up with a title for it.
The best place to showcase it.
Yeah.
This is intercut between her Vegas brawl with Lady Shiva and her training for that with her mom, who was the original Black Canary. And through the course of that, we find out that her mom is dying, presumably of cancer. And then the big reveal at the end is that she's going to throw the fight for some shady dudes who have a cure for the mom.
Right.
And so that's the big reveal at the end, is that she's got to go down the 6th round.
And like, why would Dinah be into that? Like, why would she go this route for it? What are the circumstances?
Right.
This is such a weird way to go about this.
What's the level of desperation?
Right.
Other than you're saving your mom's life. I thought it was really well done. I thought the structure was fun, going back and forth. It's very Tom King.
You're mostly getting a lot of color commentary from the commentators at the actual fight. You do get some of the fight,
right,
which is an interesting format. They're in like a boxing or wrestling ring, not an octagon.
Right, they're not
but they are doing
ring.
like kickboxing, but then also wrestling moves. Because Lady Shiva goes up on the turnbuckle,
right,
and does a drop, and so like
she does a Macho Man, or
she does like an elbow drop, like a flying elbow drop. Like you don't do like high flying maneuvers in a mixed martial arts fight. They're not wearing like gloves, so it's strange.
They both have their wrists wrapped.
Yes,
but that's it. They're not wearing gloves.
Right.
So let's talk about the Justice League watch party for a second. There's a double page spread. Clearly people are watching it, and we can identify certain people by their dialogue and things. But then we have a double page spread that reveals Justice League watch party and Green Arrow in his camo pants.
Yeah, you got Ollie in his camouflage Zubaz pants. Superman in the background making hot dogs, and he's using his heat vision to cook them. You got Elongated Man.
Oh, so this is a question for you.
Yeah.
So in the foreground on the couch is Vixen. Well, we have Barry on the right, and then we have Crypto. Vixen's feeding Crypto. Ollie's standing up, yelling at the TV. Behind him, trying to get a look, is long-headed Martian Manhunter. Next to him, stealing some snacks, is Elongated Man. Let's talk about the next two characters. Well, we have Ray Palmer on the table. I thought that was Hal Jordan at first. And then I realized, no, that's Hal Jordan behind them with Jon Stewart, clearly, wearing the ring. Who is that? Is that Hawkman? And then who's the woman sitting next to him? Is that Donna Troy? Because that's Diana behind her on the stool. Coming into the house is Arthur and Mara.
Yeah.
Next to them is Cyborg, and I guess that's Sue Dibney? I don't know. But who are the two next to Elongated Man in front of Wonder Woman? I assume that's Hawkman.
In the khaki?
Yeah, behind Ray.
That's a good guess. And it's weird he's got like stubble.
Right, like very hairy. Stubble, hairy chest peeking out, hairy arms, hairy hands.
And then who else were you looking for?
Who's the woman next to him? Is that Donna?
That's Zatanna.
Oh, is that Zatanna?
It's her ringer shirt.
Oh, she's holding up the food.
She's holding up
magic.
her cup
and
popcorn, and it says Houdini on her shirt. Yeah, so that's
right. But I just don't know who the dude is. It's got to be Hawkman.
I think Hawkman's a good guess. And then maybe over with Cyborg, maybe that's Hawk Girl.
Oh, that could be Hawk Girl. I thought that was Sue Dibney for whatever reason, but I guess it could be Hawk Girl.
And yeah, and that's John and Hal above.
Right. I didn't see them at first. I just saw the people in the foreground, so I thought that was like haggard Hal Jordan. It made me laugh, but I looked up. Oh no, there's Hal Jordan. So who's this dude? So I guess that's got to be Hawkman. He's also wearing like a safari shirt, like he was an archaeologist.
Like an archaeologist.
He's wearing like archaeologist clothing. He's got the work boots on, the pants.
He's got a lot on his plate.
He's got every hors d'oeuvre.
That's a clue.
He has everything. He's got hot dogs. He's got egg rolls.
We got to figure this out.
He's got salad.
Let us know, like in the Discord, comment on who do you think is the dude in the khaki.
It's got to be Hawkman.
That's a good guess, I think.
And Lois and Clark are making the hot dogs for everybody.
Yeah, they're making the hot dogs.
And is that Diana yawning?
Yeah.
So she's bored.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
This is a great double page spread. You can spend an hour on this.
This made me feel like a Jeff Johns, like old school kind of like the JSA at the pancake breakfast at the firehouse. Because
we talked about this on the show a lot. There's so little time spent in the secret identities of these characters. Mm-hmm. Because the concept seems to be going out of fashion, which is baloney. Even in this book where they call her Diana in the ring. But there's just no time for it because of the way storytelling's done now. But here we actually get a whole thing where they're hanging out as their civilian identities. And I think that's terrific.
I think this is really interesting. I don't know where it's going.
Right. Which is fun.
And I'm interested in the human drama of Dinah, and they're both Dinah, right?
Dinah, yeah. Dinah.
Dinah.
There wasn't a lot of thought in this whole
And Dinah Drake is the mom.
Yeah, Dinah Drake.
Yeah,
Dinah
and then what happened? We're not using Laurel anymore.
Nah, that was a Mike Grell thing, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. She's had a lot of names.
More and look, Mike Grell later.
She should lose this fight. She's a great fighter, but Lady Shiv is the best.
They are laying it on that she should lose this fight in the commentary, yeah.
She probably won't the way the structure is, but like she should lose it. As good as she is, she's one of the best.
Do we know who the guy is she's talking to in the booth?
I assume he's Russian.
There's a storytelling issue that I have with this because there's carryover from the previous page and the word savage is there.
Right. It could be Vandal Savage.
Is that Vandal Savage? And I'm not up on the current continuity of Vandal Savage.
Well, in the current continuity, Vandal Savage is somehow the fucking police commissioner of Gotham City. Don't even ask about that. I mean, that could be Vandal Savage.
That sounds familiar.
That could be Vandal Savage.
If this was like a TV show and they carried audio over, or if in comic books they do this.
Yes.
It looks like that's what they're doing, that it's like a transition and they're saying...
I'm looking in the dialogue for any clue here, and there isn't anything. At one point he says that's just what we need, implying he's part of an organization, but it could be Vandal Savage, it could not be Vandal Savage. I don't know. We'll find out in further issues.
That would be crazy if that's what Vandal Savage was up to, and this is his look right now.
That is grounds for him not being police commissioner anymore.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and thank everyone who supports the show. We're nearing the end of the year. This is the second to last pick of the week of the year. Next week will be the final one. And this time of Thanksgiving, I thank all of you who have not just listened, but have decided, I like what these guys do. It makes my comic book life better, and we're going to support that. And the main way people do that is patreon.com/iFanboy. It's where our patrons come, support the show directly. You become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. There's a monthly patron hangout, which we like doing and hanging out with everybody on live stream. And there's some things you can do if you don't want to be a monthly supporter. You can sign up for 1 full year and you get a discount. Just for knocking out that full year support all at once, you get a discount on the cost. That's really great. And in this time of holiday giving, you can give a membership. You can give a patronage to somebody. Give and receive. Put it on your holiday wish list. Tell people, hey, I would love to support these guys, but I really can't swing it. Maybe give that to me for Christmas or Hanukkah. Go to patreon.com/ifanboy/gift to find out more information. But, it could also be a funny gift. Give it to your uncle who doesn't know anything about what's happening, but why suddenly he's supporting this podcast. I think that'd be hilarious. ifanboy.threadless.com. That's our merchandise store where we have, wait for it, 20 designs on t-shirts. That's right. We had 13 not too long ago. We added 7 new designs in the past month, and we got more that we're working on. And guess what? There's a Black Friday sale happening. Threadless is having a Black Friday sale, and it's actually been extended to December 5th. So if you're listening to the show on the 1st or the 2nd, as most people seem to do based on the metrics, you still got a week to buy $12.50 tees, and everything else in the store will be on sale. It's a great time to catch up on some new shirts for the holidays, especially with the new designs we've got. And thanks for doing that if you do. We're really happy with it. ifanboy.threadless.com. ifanboy.com/support. It's our digital PayPal tip jar. If you don't want to be a patron, you want to buy a t-shirt, you want to throw a couple bucks to help support the show, keep the lights on, that's where you do it. If you're an eccentric billionaire and you want to toss $250 million in there, that's also how you do it. That's just a number. You can go higher if you want. ifanboy.com/Amazon is our general shopping link. As you shop for the holidays, I know many of you will be using Amazon. That's where you can find a link. It helps us out. Doesn't take any money out of your pocket. Also, there's links in all the shows and all the articles. There's always iFanboy links if you want to buy the pick of the week after hearing us talk about it, or you like the music on the show. You can always click on a link through there and purchase it. Helps us out. We do appreciate that. And finally, bookshop.org is our partnership with local booksellers. So if you order books through there, a local bookseller who's not a giant multinational conglomerate will fulfill your order and get the proceeds. And that's a great thing. I try to buy all my books through bookshop.org. And you'll find those links on the Booksplode books and wherever else appropriate. And thank you again, everyone who's listened or supported us throughout the year on our mini shows. We do appreciate that. Thank you. Let's move on to Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, the most tiresomely named book in comics.
It's a weird name. It's a weird title.
Number 3, they're all written by Jeff Loeb, but because Tim Sale sadly no longer with us, each issue is drawn by different artists. This one, Mark Chiarello, former DC art director, which was interesting. Josh and I talked about this the last time, not knowing what to expect, because I have several books that Mark Chiarello has illustrated. He likes to do baseball books. I've got a Negro Leagues book, and I have a
interesting
100 Best Baseball Players of All Time book. But those are just pinups. So it's interesting to see what the storytelling stylings of Mark Chiarello would be, because I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I quite liked it.
I like this quite a bit. I would say really powerhouse artists on this series. Of the 3 issues so far, this is just like the Donatello book. Mm-hmm. I think the closest to Tim Sale.
In spirit, for sure.
In spirit, yeah. Really fun stuff. There's a scene with the Riddler in the beginning, and we get little jigsaw puzzle pieces flying at us, breaking the panels. Backgrounds, really lovely, really rich looking book, sort of painterly in a way. Yeah, this is, I think, of the 3, this is the one that captures that style so far. And his take on Catwoman.
Right.
I like the scene with Robin and Catwoman, and Robin's like, I'm not falling for those curves like Batman is. like
That's because you haven't hit puberty yet, Dick.
Yes.
I try to even come up with a analog for his style. I don't even know if I can. The Catwoman stuff is certainly very Tim Sale. I'm looking on that page you were just discussing where she says googly-eyed, and that insert shot of her face is very much a Tim Sale style drawing. But the rest of it's such a unique thing all of its own. I think the Batman stuff is great. There's that one page in the beginning where he's jumping down. It's almost black and white. but I thought it was really great.
I have a very weird comp for this visually. There's very thick line work, and I don't know what media he's using, but it reminded me of a book from way back in my childhood called Harry the Dirty Dog, which is a children's picture book by Gene Zion, and the art is by Margaret Bloy Graham. And it has this feeling of like charcoal.
Yes, there's a lot of charcoal in here. Or at least
this book is from 1956. And also, this is kind of crazy. This is just fun if you're into, the visual arts. Margaret Bloy Graham went back to this book that she illustrated in 1956 and did spot colors on it in 2002. I think she was in her 80s at this point, which is crazy. But yeah, that's the thing that popped into my mind when you have the brain rot that I have for comic books and art. That's what it made me think of. And it's fun. It doesn't look like regular monthly comic books.
No, this is totally unique. Look at page 23 where Batman's been shot.
Oh,
he's bleeding, he's crouching. That almost looks like a Frank Miller drawing with the way his hands are so large. There's a lot of interesting things happening here. Now, the negative is I don't know about the story.
Right.
This is not a Jeff Loeb thing because I like a lot of stuff Loeb does, but I couldn't tell you what this is about. I'm mostly into this to see the different artists every month.
That's kind of me too. And usually I'm like a story person with comics, but here it's like kind of, I don't know, 80-20, maybe 90-10 in terms of the art. I mean, we had an Eduardo Risso issue, which is gorgeous. Doesn't look anything like Tim Sale, but fun. It's interesting to see different artists and what their idea of paying tribute to this late great artist, and whether that's honing really close to what he did or doing something within their style that's they feel is
I'll look at this as a tribute to Tim Sale and not really worrying about the story all that much.
Yeah, because it's like we're talking about the Falcones and
something's going on.
I never got into the new Penguin show because
you don't like mob stuff.
That's not my thing.
Yeah.
There are characters in this universe that are giant crocodile people. I would rather spend time with them or Solomon Grundy.
They can't decide on Robin's outfit. It changes from page to page and panel to panel. This is not just a Mark Chiarillo thing. This has been all throughout the entire thing. It's not quite the original costume, but then on a couple of panels, it is exactly the original costume. I don't know what's happening.
There's also like a Chip Kid element to this because you have the mid-century Batman plastic mask in that opening scene. The ones that you have the string around, like the elastic that you
Halloween
put on,
mask.
the boxed Halloween costume. So like there's that kind of like pop art kind of element to it. There's some really cool backgrounds in it that reminded me of like the backgrounds you'd see in like the Chuck Jones, Tom and Jerry cartoons. Like,
well, look, you don't get to be art director of a major company like that and not have all of this stuff rattling around.
So he's
your
just
head.
pulling from interesting places. And so it's a fun book visually. It's a lot of eye candy here.
I really liked it. I did not read Hornsby and Halo #1, the latest Ghost Machine release. I don't remember loving the preview. And also I had 25 books, and also I didn't even read all those. So, but this is the two Peters, Tomasi and Schneerberg.
Two Peters, who did the, was it the Light Brigade?
Something like that.
It was
the
like
Mighty?
a World War...
Did they do the Mighty too?
Oh, yeah,
or was that
yeah.
Somni? That's not. I think it was Schneerberg. I think it was.
I know Schneerberg did, with Tomasi, did that Light Brigade book, which was like a World War II with angels. Like, it feels like one of those offshoot Hellboy kind of things, but it was its own thing, its own standalone story. So this is Hornsby and Halo.
Oh, that was Somni who did The Mighty. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, also Schneerberg. They both did it. Somni and Schneerberg. That's a great book.
This is part of those Image books that share universes.
This is Jeff Johns' shared universe, yeah.
So this is part of a like family-friendly sort of universe of books, and I don't know if that's
some are.
Yeah. Well, this particular universe, that's what this is.
Oh, that's this one? That's like there's like the Explorer family book, and then this one?
Oh, yeah. This Rockefellers.
This is Family Odysseys. This is
Family Odysseys, yes.
The sub imprint of the imprint Ghost Machine.
This is so strange.
There's a lot happening.
It feels like they're shoehorning in it. But anyways, this follows Frankenstein #4 in Fun with Grave Digging. So the quick pitch on this is that they're doing the Apocalypse New Genesis swap with kids, where they swap a boy angel and a girl devil, go not to heaven and hell. They aren't swapped like that way. They're swapped. They end up in households on Earth that this is convoluted in the script of the comic. So follow with me here. The angel boy goes to live in a broken home, is the way they kind of describe it on Earth. And the devil girl goes and lives in a virtuous place. So she's living in a community center that her parents run, I guess, and they're helping out the needy. And he is living in a funeral home run by corrupt funeral home parents.
Sure.
And I just had to shout this out because their scheme is they do everything right. They bury rich people, but then they have grave robber accomplices who they tell to go and dig them up so they can get their expensive shoes and watches and stuff. And I feel like there must be an easier way to do this con. There must be a better way to do.
Did you like this
kind
book?
of grift. It's neat. I'm interested in where it goes because so the kids turn 13 and they're on a school bus and they're both kind of bullied a bit. But then when they go home, when they go to sleep, they become a superhero and a super villainous. And
because he's an angel and she's a devil.
Yeah. And so like he becomes like this avenging angel who goes to stop the people who are robbing the grave. And then when he wakes up, he's got this piece of statuary from the cemetery and she's got the loot from the grave robbery, which she stole from the grave diggers.
It's a lucrative business.
It's a lucrative business. Yeah. It's a lot to get to that point.
It's a lot of infrastructure.
There's this long, extensive narration about why this is happening and where they're going with this. And then I grew up with a lot of Harvey comics, like the Casper the Friendly Ghost and like it's like Wendy the Witch and stuff like that. It's like it's very cute, but then it has all this lore behind it. It's kind of crazy. And the art, who's the artist on this? Peter Schneerberg, right? The style he's doing reminds me a lot of Gabriel Rodriguez on Lock and Key.
Okay.
So it feels like a family kind of book, but it's got a very cute premise, and I'm curious to see where they go with this and how dark it gets with the angels and demons kind of thing.
So what is your thought on Absolute Wonder Woman? This is issue 2 from Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman, Jordi Belair, and Becca Gare.
This was, I think, with Justice League Unlimited, probably the thing I was most excited about reading this week. And it's really good, but it feels like more of issue 1, which is not a bad thing. It's great. It's just if you loved issue 1 the way I did, I think you will like this as well. And this brings in Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor looking very much like a 1916, from the movie kind of era. Very fine featured, almost Jay Gatsby-esque.
Yes, yeah.
Sort of like early century guy, not so much a guy from 20, whatever year it is, 24.
He looks like you could knock him over pretty easily. Like he's very, yeah.
There was a page here that I was so impressed by. I mean, the whole thing was great. This has been really, really good. Page 14, and I think Kelly Thompson's been doing terrific work, but for me right now, Hayden Sherman is the story of the book. Page 14, they found, I almost called him Jay. They found Steve Trevor in hell. Wonder Woman rescued him. It's a play on the traditional rescue of Steve Trevor. And he's sort of sitting there, doesn't know what's going on, and he comes over to meet Diana's mom. And the way that Hayden Sherman draws Diana looking at him, I've never seen a better depiction of infatuation. The way he draws her eyes. And it's just from having them tilt in. Both eyes sort of tilt in the inside. It's just, I've never seen it. I was like, wow, you need no words to know that she is in love with him.
Yeah.
Just from the way she draws her eyes. It's not over the top. It's just slightly altering the angle of the eyes. And it was like, wow, that is amazing cartooning.
And Cersei's probably like, this is the first man you've ever seen.
Right.
You've grown up in hell with just me. We're doing our thing here. We're learning some witchcraft and stuff. And this Jimmy Stewart looking dude comes in.
Well, you said it's correct. We're still basically in the introductory stages of this story where she's still fighting those monsters. And we're just getting flashbacks to her life. And now the big bad monster of all, the Tetracide, has showed up.
Great monster designs. I don't know that I need the crazy layouts. I was like, you're a good enough artist that I don't need this to look like that. What was it, Batwoman Elegy kind of thing?
Right. J.H. Williams.
J.H. Williams, yeah, where it looks like a stained glass window. I was like, I don't know that that's always adding to it.
Right.
But I love the art. And I think there's, like you said, great storytelling. I love the scene with Diana talking to the military brass.
I was literally going to bring it up next.
They're like,
just yelling at her.
Just come out of a portal. We don't know that you're good or whatever. And it's a thing like New Frontier where we see Wonder Woman looking down at Superman. And it's like using her stature, using her height, looking down on this general. And it's really effective.
I like that he's, shouting at her and she's just like waiting for him to finish. Okay, so anyway, the monsters, like... She does not give a shit about this guy, his authority, or any of his anger. She just wants to move on to the important conversation. Like, I just thought the whole thing was great. This has been really good.
And I do it's one of the other guys, not the one who was yelling at her, is like, so I don't know, did you kill that thing or like send it away? Like, we don't know exactly, like, we're in the military. Like we don't deal with this stuff every day. Like, what's going on? Like, how does this work?
It's a very good book. Mm-hmm. We talk about this all the time. It's essentially an Elseworld story for whatever category they want to put it into.
Hinting at whatever led Steve Trevor out of hell, because we're missing that piece so far. I guess we're going to continue to flash back to that stuff. And there's some history there. And like, why aren't they together? Why are they meeting up again? Why weren't they together in the first place? So interested to see where that goes. Also, this should not be overlooked. Not only does this artist have to draw a horse over and over again, it's a horse skeleton.
And artists hate drawing horses.
Exactly.
That's doubly bad.
It looks great all the time. And I love the conversation about, like, so he's a Pegasus? Like, is Pegasus?
No, it's Pegasus. So a Pegasus, no, the Pegasus.
This is the Pegasus. And
Pegasus the Pegasus? Yes.
Having to draw, like, the ribs of a horse, and, like, from crazy angles, too. Just very, very good.
DC's numbering strategy continues to confound. But if you're at all Green Arrow fan, Green Arrow 18 is a jumping on point. All new creative team, all new direction. But number 18, Legacy 361. Chris Condon.
Yes.
Writer of That Texas Blood, now doing Green Arrow. Art by the mysterious Montos. This, to me, was basically Chris Condon saying, well, what if I did Mike Grell?
Yeah.
I know we've been doing Green Arrow family adventures for a long time, but what if I just did Mike Grell? And they went, cool.
Absolute power.
And they did it.
You don't need to know any of that stuff. This is just, hey, did you like Longbow Hunters? I wasn't originally going to pick this up because I wasn't going to pick up a number 18. I didn't know it was a new creative team, but then someone on the Discord mentioned that, hey, if you like Longbow Hunters, if you like Mike Grell, you should definitely check this out, because I didn't offhand remember Chris Condon's name. But then when I was like, oh, that guy. Great pick for a Green Arrow book. And this is the very start of a mystery with Ollie giving some sass to some conservative senators and some guys who are polluting the land under schools with their toxins and stuff. And I'm very excited to see where this goes. This is what I want out of Green Arrow. When you're faced with a new ongoing Green Arrow, you don't know which one it's going to be.
Sure.
This is the one I want.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it's just a straightforward mystery. Somebody's murdering all the people that were at this party that he was at in the guise of Oliver Queen. And I found myself thinking in the middle of this, this is what I want Batman to be. Just have him solve a mystery. Someone's killing people. I don't need this world to shatter every time. So this was great. I don't know who Montos is, but it has a very like hard edge, sort of half Vertigo-y style. And people who have not been around forever might not know that Green Arrow, when we're talking about the Mike Grell books back in the late 80s, early 90s, was basically a Vertigo book before Vertigo was a thing.
Getting recollected beginning of next year, I think January or I want to say January, late January, they're coming out with those DC Finest big books that are like the Marvel Epic collections. They're starting Green Arrow with the Longbow Hunters.
They stripped Green Arrow down back then to like the essence. He only shot regular arrows. He only fought street level crime. There were no superheroes, at least for the most part. Dinah was there, but she wasn't Black Canary. She was just his girlfriend. And it was very much a Vertigo version of Green Arrow.
If you like the better Batman street level stories, if you like Daredevil, you're going to like that kind of thing.
And here, despite the fact that he's got kind of a cape, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I like how he looks when he's flying around.
He's basically a stripped down. We ended that whole last era with was it an annual issue or something came out a couple weeks ago where he had like all of his million kids and they were all doing things. Now it's like back to basics, Green Arrow on the
he doesn't
streets.
even mention any of those people at all.
No, I like this a lot. I thought it was really great. So those are the books we wanted to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, the patrons we mentioned just a little while ago, every patron gets voted out of the book to the rundown. And this week it was a tight race. It was a 1-vote win for West Coast Avengers #1 from Marvel Comics. Jerry Duggan on writing, Danny Kim on art, Arthur Hesley on colors, and Joe Caramagna on letters. As we come back to the West Coast Avengers after, I think the last time was Kelly Thompson's book several years ago, or a year ago, or 6 months ago, or whenever it was, sometime in the past. I always loved the West Coast Avengers as a kid. It was perfectly in my era. John Byrne did it, and he was my favorite creator at the time. And so the idea of doing sort of a California Avengers team was fun. So I always check out a West Coast Avengers book, regardless of what's happening. This was a weird book, I thought.
It's a bit schizophrenic. There's parts of it, and the parts that I liked and I don't know if you'll agree, the part that I liked is Iron Man on a scooter with like car batteries strapped to him that feels a lot like Nick Spencer's Superior Foes of Spider-Man. I kind of like the ramshackle stuff, but then why are we trusting Ultron to be a hero? Come on.
Yeah.
That's a big ask for me.
Yeah, I don't
as a
remember
reader.
the setup for this. I don't know where it came from. I was just sort of rolling with it. And the lineup as it starts is Iron Man, War Machine, Ultron, and Spider-Woman. And I was like, first of all, that's too many robot characters, or at least too many guys in metal.
Too many metal characters, yeah.
You're exactly right. When Ultron was in the team, it's like, no, he's reformed. I was like, okay, come on. And we know he's not. They don't even waste one issue telling you he's not reformed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, who saw this coming? Iron Man's in his awesome classic red and silver armor, but it's so old
cool.
and messed up. He's got to, as Paul said, charge it with car batteries strapped to his waist because he can't use his regular armor.
And he has to get it from like a storage unit that he had the last time he was in town.
And it's fun. Like he goes to his West Coast Avengers storage box and he's like throwing out Wonder Man's jacket and Vision's cape, and there's like a lot of nods. Jerry Duggan's been doing some of my favorite superhero work lately. I just thought the tone was weird. And quite frankly, I hate saying these things, but I didn't think Danny Kim was very good, the artist. I just didn't think it worked.
I like the visual of Iron Man on the scooter.
Yes.
I thought he did that very well. It was very silly and I liked it. But yeah, it wouldn't grab me for
the human face stuff, like when he goes to meet the woman who's dying of cancer on page 17, it just, like, he's got a tiny head in the first panel. He's got these big, like, eyes. It didn't work. I think the art was
Ultron ripped
very
that
good.
lady's head off.
Yeah. And stuck around her whole body.
I don't know why there's no blood.
Right. Is there no blood? Oh, there's a little bit of blood coming at the bottom, but yeah, not too much. You think
Not
there'd
as
be more
much blood as you would expect. And like, I'm not like a gore hound.
Right.
It's like a tone thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a crazy scene. And you're doing it in a like
the
all
tone
ages,
went from wacky
or like
slapsticky
13
Iron Man wearing a helmet while riding a scooter to the end scene with Ultron, which was very serious and dark.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little strange. They also end up recruiting down and out Firestar, who post Orcus has no friends, to join the team, which is interesting. But I feel like it would have been stronger. Maybe just have Ultron be the villain and don't pretend like he.
Tony Sir. Is that a thing that she would do?
I don't know.
I don't know Firestar that well, so
they're keeping her sort of a younger character, so I guess so. But I don't know. It was a very weird book. I was very excited for it. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was great or even good. Although there were good things that happened in it.
Yeah, I think starting off on just a premise that they couldn't sell that to me, that Tony would think that this was a good idea.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Although they reference the fact that Ultron apparently saved him and Rhodey in a previous like adventure, which I don't know if that was in the regular Iron Man or what. I'm not an Iron Man guy in comics, so I don't know. But yeah, this was, I think tonally it was just very strange.
There was another dude on the team in the beginning, but he's not on the team at the end. I don't remember what his name was. It was just weird. I wish they had a better artist. I wish the premise was a little different. I don't know. What is your rating on West Coast Avengers out of 5 stars?
So I would give this 2 stars.
2 stars. I would give it 2.75.
Okay.
And our new question, would you have read this if it wasn't the patron pick?
No. In fact, I didn't.
I would have, and I did. And then are you sticking with it? You read issue 2?
I should say I did read it. I didn't read it until it was named the patron pick. And then I read it and was like, okay. What was the next question?
Are you going to read issue 2?
No.
I'm going to give issue 2 a shot, just solely because I think Jerry Duggan does great work. See if this is just a misstep in the premise or what. I
have greatly enjoyed Jerry Duggan work in the past. This I think it's just the combination of elements is just not really for me. I'm not an Iron Man guy.
Right.
I don't like Ultron.
I love Ultron as a villain. I just think it's silly. It'd be like, there was a new Justice League book and we have the Joker's on the team. No, he's reformed. It's like, okay, guys. West Coast Avengers #1. Thanks for being a patron. Patreon.com/fanboy. Everyone who's a patron gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. But if you give the $5 or higher level, you get a power live on the show. We call that the patron power. And this week, Paul's going to give it out.
Patron power is that.
Well, it's for Dan Clark.
Dan Clark. Sorry. Dan Clark. You can wrap any strangely shaped gift, not just for Christmas, any gift-giving holiday. You will know what to do. Perfectly wrap. You're going to know whether that's something that you can do in regular wrapping paper or you don't bother and just put it in some tissue paper and throw it in a gift bag. You're going to know what to do. You're not going to be worried about it anymore. You're not going to lose sleep over how to do this anymore. You're not going to be like, what I'm saying is you're not going to be like me.
No matter how oddly shaped the item, it's going to be perfectly wrapped.
Yeah. You're going to know. You're going to know if it's going to need an outer box to then wrap the box. Like for me, I unroll the gift wrap.
Right.
I put it in the middle of the gift wrap and then
bag it up.
No. I do a tube around it so it's in the middle of a cylinder of gift wrap. And then I twist the ends like it's a Tootsie Roll.
Huh.
And then I tape those.
Listen, whatever gets you through the process, I have sympathy for all of it. Sometimes wrapping comes easy, sometimes it's very difficult. But Dan is the master wrapper, no matter what. If he had to wrap a car...
Yeah, he would be like, yeah, I know to go and get that giant bow for Happy Honda Days and get that and put that on top.
Right.
He knows the most impressive way to wrap something up that person, that recipient of the gift, is going to know that they
so happy.
Are loved. And they're not going to say, well, it's the thought that counts. They're going to be like, oh man, that's great. That's
Good
a great
job,
gift.
Dan. Thanks for being a patron, Dan. Patreon.com/iFanboy. If you give the $5 or higher level, you could get an awesome power, like being able to wrap anything in the best possible manner that exists. We're long. We have a couple of quick emails that I think we should answer. First one's from David C. from Springfield, Massachusetts. David says, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I love you guys. However, I miss Paul.
Oh.
That man had a voice that was like a warm hug. I'd love an update on that sweet, charming, and brilliant man. How's he doing? Does he still read books? Inquiring minds want to know. I've been thinking about this for solidly at least 10 minutes. How are you doing, Paul? I think people should understand a couple things first before you answer how you've been doing. Number one, okay. Paul's gone nowhere. Paul is in the Animation Brain Trust, as we've mentioned in the show a couple times. He still does, like 4 or 5 shows a year, depending on the Animation Brain Trust and special edition stuff, and occasionally popping up on this show. But also, anyone who is a new listener to this show, who's come in the last couple of years, Paul was once the third man on the show. So me and Josh and Ron Richards started iFanboy together. We started the podcast, and we did that for several years. And then Ron got a job at Image. And so then Paul, who was like our primary writer / editor back when we had a website that was going all the time, jumped in. And you joined 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the third man on the show regularly till 2015.
My great honor.
2 years of being the co-host of the show straight through, and then moved on to other things. But I just want people to understand, you were like the third man, the first official new co-host of the show for 2 years.
Yeah, it was the John Paul Valley of...
No, I like you.
Okay. No, and like I got some great reviews on iTunes when I joined in. Like I remember there was a listener who said that I shouldn't be allowed to be on an entertainment podcast because I'd never been to a Disney theme park. And that will stay with me forever.
You're going to be muttering about that on your deathbed.
With someone who heard that on a podcast and wrote and like updated.
That was Ron, though. That's the thing, though. That was what Ron wrote about you.
And then there was another person on the forum who said, because I get Google alerts, who said I sounded like I was high all the time.
Well, that's also true. You are.
Yeah. So
how have you been, Paul? You've been reading the books. What have you been doing? That's what people want to know. Tell as much as you want.
I go through spells where there'll be months where I don't read anything. And then I think this is probably familiar for a lot of readers who maybe don't have like a pull list. They'll just like not read for a while, and then they'll come back in and they'll read everything for a few weeks.
Well, I'll tell everyone, a little behind the scenes. A couple of weeks ago, Paul came to me. And again, we talk to Paul all the time. He's doing the shows regularly, but he came to me and said, I think I'm getting back in. What should I have been reading? What should I have missed? So I sent Paul a whole list of books that have been coming out the last year or so that I thought were really good. So Paul's getting back in.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully you'll make more appearances on the show now that you're back in the mix.
Absolutely.
Because we love having you on.
Because, I'm back in and I'm trapped now.
That's right. But yeah, Paul is always going to be one of the most important people at iFanboy. And as he knows, as I tell him, the invitation's always open to come on as much or as little as he wants to.
Careful what you wish for.
That is his right as one of the hosts of the show.
Kids don't get kidney stones. That's what I'll say. If there's anything you can do, read up on it and don't get them. Otherwise, I've been doing okay. I just turned 40. Ooh. That might make some listeners feel old. I know it makes Conor feel old. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. I don't like hearing that.
You don't like that?
Yeah, no, that's not great. I don't.
Okay.
You're still the kid.
I'm still.
Josh and I. You're still the kid.
Okay.
Who we met at that party.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Let's move on to the next question. I can't deal with that anymore.
Okay. Kevin K. writes, my question is regarding Conor's casual use of the word terrific. I've never heard anyone use it so effortlessly or often and pull it off. How and when did you add terrific to your everyday vocabulary? It certainly isn't part of the common 21st century vernacular. Was it a conscious decision? Did you pick it up as a child from a parent or relative? Has anyone ever given you a hard time about it? I feel like if I suddenly started saying terrific to describe things, my family and friends would bring it up. If it was a conscious choice, what was it about terrific that made you adopt it? Why not incredible or tremendous? Also, where does terrific land on the spectrum of positive adjectives for you? Is terrific better than amazing? Spectacular? I've been thinking about this question at least 2 to 3 times a week when I listen to the show, as that is the only time I hear anyone use it. I've been listening since 2009.
Paul, am I being gaslit? Like, is that what this feels like? Is that what this is? This feeling is?
Do you feel like you say terrific a lot?
I do, but is that weird?
I don't think so.
I thought it was a normal word that everyone used. I certainly hear it in my life.
I think a lot of times, maybe as a writer or someone who you speak a lot for this role, you want to not say incredible or intriguing a lot. You don't want to use the commonly used ones too much. And
but you
so
also
you
get your words that you stick, that you sort of your brain falls on in the midst of extemporaneous conversation. And that's certainly one of them for me.
Mm-hmm.
But really, is it like an unusual word?
I don't think so.
I thought it was a fairly common word that everyone used, especially in the comic world where you have a character called Mr. Terrific.
Mm-hmm. Fair play.
I was just under the impression this was a normal word that people used to just say things like amazing. It's just a synonym for those other words.
I think if someone said like stupendous a lot, that's more off the beaten path.
Again, I feel like I'm being gaslit, but is this a word from like the 1920s that I'm apparently unaware that no one uses?
I don't think so.
I feel like I hear it all the time. It's like if I suddenly started calling every book The Cat's Meow, then sure, you could be like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
This is a normal word, I think.
I think terrific is well within the bounds of, that's a normal word.
Like, you don't hear the word terrific and go, what is wrong with him?
Yeah, I don't think of you in like a newsboy cap and...
Right. This email came in a couple weeks ago, and it's been in my head for a while. Like, Kevin got to me.
Yeah, this is one that will stick with you, like my theme park thing.
It's just like, when I say the word, then I think of Kevin's email immediately.
It's not just thinking like, do I do that? It's like, do I do that to the extent that a person out there pauses in their day and is going to write about it? But yeah, I don't... Gen Z, let us know.
I'm going to start saying tremendous all the time now.
I don't know how old Kevin K is. Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. I think terrific is a pretty normal word.
It got in my head, man. It got in my head.
A screenwriting professor of mine in college said, people don't say heavens to Murgatroyd. And I was like, the person's being ironic. The character is saying it knowing that that's not a common phrase.
That was a note you got in your script?
That was a note I got. Yeah, I was like...
Well, that's why I wanted to do this email when you came on, because you're a man of letters. And I wanted to be like, is this weird? Tell me the truth. But you say no, so I
think terrific is a pretty normal word. I probably say terrific once a day.
It's not a strange word.
It's not a strange word.
Thanks for writing in, David and Kevin. We'd like to hear from you. So get on the show, write to contact@ifanboy.com, or for the Media Explode, put Media Explode in the subject line. And just a reminder, as we always do every year, after next week's show, we'll take all the unanswered emails from last year, put them in a folder, and start fresh for the new year. So if you didn't get your email read on this year's show, you got 2 to 3 weeks to write in new, fresh emails to us to start the year off right.
It's not keen, you know? Like keen is like, if you use keen a lot, that's kind of like if I could search
really
for place,
yeah,
like terrific with keen, that would make sense to me. But then I'd be like, I've never heard Conor say keen, really.
Kevin makes it sound like I'm Dick Grayson on the Batman 66 TV show. Let's talk about other things that we've done. Sometime in the past, Josh and I reviewed Batman The Dark Knight Strikes Again on a Booksplode. Paul, do you recall being on that original Batman The Dark Knight Strikes Again review?
I do, because I was going to say, I remember talking about it.
It's the first time we've ever done a book a second time.
Interesting, okay.
It was you and Josh and Jeff Reed on that original one.
Okay, yeah, that sounds
This one
right.
was Josh making me do this and making me have a miserable time.
Yeah, I did not like that book.
3 weeks ago, we had our Media Explode year-end mailbag. Speaking of email, that was super fun. And then 2 weeks ago, Josh had his Talksplode interview with Mitch Gerrits. That's his final Talksplode of the year. We'll get to that in a second. The rest of the year, as we said earlier, next week, Pick of the Week 957 is our final Pick of the Week of the year before we go on our holiday break. But later that week, we'll have a bonus Booksplode. Josh's Talksplode interview fell through, and there's just not enough time to book a new one. So we're going to do a bonus Booksplode of what? We don't know. This just got decided.
We're currently deciding. I'm on this. I don't know what it's about. I got an urgent text message.
Yeah, I think Paul's going to be involved. We're getting all hands on deck for that one. And so then a few days later on December 15th is our traditional final show of the year, the All Media Year-End Roundup, where we talk about our favorites in film and television and books and music and podcasts and comics. And that'll be the final show of the year. Then there's a break. We come back January 5th for Pick Week 958. That's our schedule for the rest of the year. But I do want to mention Paul has some exciting news. Paul's going to be doing the Star Wars Skeleton Crew recaps for a brand new pop culture website that's launching this very week called Pop Heist, POPHEIST.com. The website launches this week, and the recaps start this week. So Paul is doing that. Tell us about that, Paul.
So, yeah, a friend of the show. I'm sure a lot of listeners know Brett White. He's starting up this new website talking about all kinds of entertainment. And one of the things that he asked me to do is would I like to do a recap of Skeleton Crew. This is the Jude Law Star Wars show. This is the family-friendly. It looks like Flight of the Navigator, and it looks pretty fun. So I'm excited about it. There's a lot of interesting writers and directors doing stuff on the show.
Well, Brett knows a lot of people, so he should have a good staff there.
Yes. So we're very excited about Pop Heist. I'll be doing much more there, hopefully, in the new year. But you can also find me on Blue Sky. I got harangued into joining social media again.
Oh.
I haven't been on Twitter or X or Facebook for many, many years, but I am back and I just we're calling it live skeeting apparently on Blue Sky. I live skeeted the Macy's parade.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's not a good word for it.
No, it isn't.
It sounds like something else entirely.
Yeah, Marsha Cook mentioned it. It was live skeeting. I was like, no.
I did think about this while watching the parade this year was that our old friend Timmy, who passed away, you guys used to live tweet it as if you were the hosts of the show, and it was always very funny. And I'm glad you're getting back into having that creative outlet again.
Mm-hmm.
What is your Blue Sky handle?
It's Fuzzy Typewriter. It's the old tried and true. It was available, so I grabbed it. So that's me. Fuzzy Typewriter. I think it's like fuzzytypewriter.social.bsky or whatever it is. It's a very weird system over there. They need to figure that out.
If you want to check out Paul's live skeets, check it out at Fuzzy Typewriter on Blue Sky. Mm-hmm. And head over to our library of shows. They're all over at iFanboy.com. There's well over 1,400 of them at this point. You can get them there. They're all in the feed. You also get them wherever podcasts are sold. Follow us on iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. And sometimes when it's not the holidays, you can find out the Best of the Week in Panels feature on there as well. Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, Jay Flanagan on Instagram, Paul remains Fuzzy Typewriter on Instagram, but also Fuzzy Typewriter on Blue Sky, so you can find him there.
And you can subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy, where you'll find all of our old video shows. We post this show every week. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you go into your podcast app and set iFanboy to auto-download. It really helps us out if you do that. And if you're listening to Pocket Cast, you can now give this show a rating.
Ratings.
You need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. So please take a few minutes, give us a nice rating. Appreciate you.
And Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you're listening to the show anywhere else, please consider rating the show. If you can't support the show in any other way, rating and reviewing the show wherever you listen to it is very helpful. The more ratings, the more reviews, the more the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-controlling algorithm likes it.
Folks, we've been saying it for almost 1,000 episodes now. Ratings. It's the reverse of the anti-life equation. Ratings is where it's at.
Thanks for listening. And Paul, thanks for coming on. I always love doing the show with you. Even though this was a crazy week and I only get to read half my books, I liked it. Looking forward to it. And despite the fact that my throat was hurting the entire time, I had a fun time.
Thank you, buddy. I hope you feel better.
Thanks.
I feel like you're sick often when I'm on.
It's the end of the year. You hang out. I was at a family dinner party last night. Someone had a cold. Thursday night, throat started to hurt. It's like, of course it's happening right before they have to do the show, but it happens. But I appreciate you and I appreciate all the listeners out there. And we'll come back next week for our final pick of the week of the year. And until then, I'm Conor.
Happy holidays, folks. I'm Paul.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.